So whether I'm doing training or consultancy for a client, one of the things that I often get asked the most about when it comes to link building is what are the types of links that you should be going after? So what I wanted to do is just really cover the main types of links that I would focus on for a new site and for any site really, and also the types of links that you can look at for more of a long-term plan as well. So I put a bit of a training deck together. Let's just get into it. So the first one really is citations and directories. They're not necessarily powerful in the same way that, say, a digital PR type of link would be, but they're a really nice quick win. They're great for local SEO, and they're something that you can do manually. So you can hire a virtual assistant to do it. You could pay a tool like Bright Local to do it, or you could pay an agency to do it. So you could use a list like this from Bright Local, which isn't bad. You can just work your way through a list like that. What I would recommend though is to do a link intersect in something like Ahrefs, especially if you're in local SEO, and then you can look at the types of links that have been indexed that your competition have that you don't. So for example, here you've got links from like say Yale, 3 best rated, Smart Business Directory. You can analyze each link there. The reason why I say this is because when you're ordering these directory services, there's often no guarantee that any of those directory links are going to get indexed. So rather than wasting your money on links that potentially aren't going to do anything from a citation side, it's better, in my opinion, to have less, but know that they're actually going to get indexed because you can see that as part of the link intersect in Ahrefs. So from a citation side, I'd say that's the best way to do it. You probably will end up with less, but at least you know what you do have is going to end up being indexed in the first place. Expert commentary and journalist requests. So put these two together. I suppose expert commentary can bleed into more digital PR style approaches. So let's just focus a little bit more on journalist requests to begin with. So that could be anything from quoted, help a B2B writer, connectively, featured, editorial. The list just keeps going on. Those are the main ones that I've included here. Those are all my favorites. But really, the reason why I love journalist requests is one, you can sign up to free platforms, or you could use Twitter or X to find journalist requests. They're often really decent links from really high authority publications and websites. And also the type of links that they are, they're often mentioning your brand and they're a link to the root, the domain, to the homepage. So it just means that it's a really nice initial way to start powering up a new site, especially rather than just relying on, say, citations and potentially paid links, which we'll get into. But especially because journalist requests can take quite a while to go live when you're doing it in batches. So it's just one of those things like the sooner that you start doing it, the more traction you can sort of get from past responses as well. So for example here, Quoted is really good. It's a premium platform for the most part, past a certain number of responses. You can filter by your target keywords. You can reach out directly to journalists. Considering how much it is, I don't think it's a lot each month. It's a really, really good platform to use. Help a B2B writer. This one is more for if you're a consultant like me, or you run an agency, or you have clients in sort of tech space, especially tech spaces. Help a B2B for the time being, at the time of recording this, it's free. If you put my jamestaylorseo.co.uk site into Ahrefs, you can see the types of links I've been able to get from Help a B2B, like Shopify, Fiverr, Zapier, HubSpot, like giant publications. I think you'd otherwise really struggle to land those types of links to the homepage, especially. But with Help a B2B and those types of platforms, been able to do it. And then editorial. So this is one, especially if you're in the UK, you've got like an e-com business or you're a small publisher. This is really good because you get categorized opportunities. So I guess it's similar to how something like Connectively might work. But for relatively little money each month, I think editorial is worth checking out as well. One thing that I just sort of finish this part off on is if you're doing this as a service, or if you're really starting to invest into journalist request outreach, keep a list of the sites that you land features on. So for example, like through Complete White Label, which is the agency I'm a partner in, we would keep track of sites as features go live. So for example, say Forbes, you might get 3 features in there, but they're all unlinked brand mentions. So yes, they're still important, but from a purely sort of links perspective, you might say, right, for another client or for another sort of round of outreach, let's put Forbes to one side, or it's lower on the priority list. That's a bad example, by the way. I don't actually know what Forbes give as standard. But you can see how that could save you quite a lot of time if you're putting this list together to sort of say, right, of all these sites we know we'll definitely get a link from them, because we've had links in the past. So it's just a really nice way, because some of these requests can take quite a long time to write out. So it just saves you that time and gives added sort of trust when it comes to doing the request. If you're going to land it, then you're probably going to get a link from it. So data campaigns, these are easily my favorite, I would say. Well, one of my favorite. They're definitely more time intense from the outset, but the type of links that you can get and like how syndication can work, you can get some really, really good backlinks from this, and it's just quite an interesting process. So, um, there are a couple of ways to approach data campaigns, and I suppose by this I mean sort of digital PR campaigns in general. If you're looking at it like a one-man band or a smaller business, I would say there's 2 ways that you can approach this, and these are my 2 favorite ways. So first one is sort of commentary where you might be an expert in the niche. So for example, here we've got an I'm a cleaning expert search. So something like in the mirror, we'll go into that and we can see that the journalist here, they've also covered, let's have a look. Yeah, so I'm a cleaning expert, I'm a health expert. So you can start to pull out these journalists where they covered expert commentary in the past. So you could tie this to, say, you were a driving expert and Christmas is coming up. So, driving expert on the 5 checks that you need to do before going on your Christmas road trip back home. Could be something just, they're often not extensive pieces. It's how you then tie it into something that's topical that a journalist might cover, and also take a look at the types of things that they've covered before. And, the chances that they might also be happy to pick up on what you're sending across. And then also you've got these like city or country level sort of data pieces. So something like Manchester has been named the most driver friendly city. So we can do a search like this, like Manchester named and car. Um, and then it's how you go about getting that data, which is the most important thing. So this one here, we can see it was a study and they put all these different sort of points that they've looked at. But the main thing here is like you can get this data, put it into a league table, reach out to the top 3 cities, the bottom 3 cities. And if nothing comes of it, it's a really interesting piece that you can use for your site. So the time spent is never wasted. But once you start to do it, you can pick up on, data sets that are refreshed quite often, sort of government data sets and things like that. So that one's really interesting because the process itself is quite creative and the types of links that you can get are brilliant. So especially if you're a local business, so say like you're a Manchester hire car company, something like this is so contextual and you can reach out to quite high authority publications local to you, as well as doing like a national press sort of angle as well. So when it comes to actually putting those together, it helps to have like a log of opportunities, of, what is the sort of campaign going to be around, where you're going to get the data from, and what assets are going to come from it. So at the agency, that's something that we do. As you can see here, we've got one like, what is the campaign name? What's the summary? The why behind it? What are the publications we can target? Most importantly, what are the data sources? So again, you can see how you can start to build those league tables because you can see how those data sources come together. What's the methodology? And then obviously the deliverables. So you're always going to have some sort of press release, but then that could also be mirrored with on-site content. And if it's quite data heavy and you want to have an image element, introduce an infographic to it as well. You can do this manually, I would say, for anyone who's starting out in it or anyone who doesn't have a massive budget. Doing this sort of outreach manually, even though it takes a lot longer, you can really start to get used to how the process works. And so, for example, I'm saying here, looking at all the journalists who've covered things with cleaning expert or cleaning professional in the past year, and then using a tool like Hunter to find their emails. Often they're listed there anyway, so you can do it as like a manual process and just putting your emails together, your outreach sheets and all that sort of stuff, doing it manually. You can use tools like Muckrack and Rocks Hill anyway, but it's easy to see how that can start to rack up. So doing it manually not only gets you used to the process, but you can start to really understand, who are your sort of target journalists, target publishers for each piece that you're creating. And there's an example of one we've done for my agency, Complete White Label. So that was around sort of like UK's best beer garden city. But we also tied that as well to searches for beer garden spiking in the last month because there was a heat wave. So that's another thing that you can do. You can tie the data to searches around Google Trends and put a really nice topical piece together. And again, if nothing comes of it, it's an interesting one to add to your site. So statistics pages, I really like these not only because they can turn into sort of passive link building assets over time. They can bring relevant traffic to your site. So it's not just the link building elements, but it also isn't something that needs active outreach. You might have an initial push when you create, say, a 2024 statistics piece, and you might reach out to people who are linking to the 2022 version of a competitor. I've not really found that works that well anyway. I've found that focusing more on creating the best sort of evergreen piece of whatever the statistics and the data happens to be for your industry and just keeping it updated. As long as it's ranking, chances are it's going to get links quite passively from journalists and publishers who are referencing your site or your sort of data hub as the source of the data, even though it's not. It's more about creating that really, really nice resource that just makes it dead simple for people to go in, take the data and attribute you with a link. So really what that then means is you're building up these internal hubs of authority for your site that you can utilize for internal linking purposes, and they can link back to the types of pages that wouldn't otherwise naturally get linked, say if it was like a category page or something like that. So for example, here with the number of referring domains that we can see for an SEO statistics piece, obviously these articles, they're not creating all the stats themselves, but you can see how many referring domains come from like just the 2024 piece. So as you're creating something evergreen, you can just keep updating that every year or every time new data comes out. So there's just so much that you can do around statistics pieces. And think of like these passive link building assets as well for like calculators and those types of guides. You don't necessarily need to be actively outreaching them all the time. They can just build links, as and when people find them and refer back to them. And then the final one is blogger outreach and niche edits or link inserts. Gets a bit of a bad rap really around sort of guest posting and blogger outreach, but I think when you know what you're looking for, it can still work really well. It's just how you approach speaking to bloggers and vetting bloggers. So I think the main benefit really is that you can control the anchor text and the destination of a link. So if you're looking to get those initial links without doing the sort of journalist request work, or you want to sort of give a boost to a certain article or a product URL, that is a really nice way to do it. You really need to be careful though about how you approach analyzing publishers, knowing how to avoid link farms and private blog networks, and increasingly these types of websites that are literally just made to sell links. So my recommendation is to find bloggers who, and it sounds ridiculous, like who are like clearly real people, by searching for the types of things that they would be writing about. So for example, if we were looking for, say, family bloggers and travel bloggers, really random example, but Peppa Pig World Review is something that legitimate travel bloggers and family bloggers will be writing about. And you can start that vetting process from this point. You can obviously also look in Ahrefs, do the link intersect like we've done with the citations at the start. But that's a really nice way to do it. And then you can start to look at what does their traffic look like? Are they active on socials? Again, are they real people? So there's a link in the description to my sort of base template for how you can start to analyze sites. It's not sort of mega in depth, but you can make a copy and add to it as you see fit. But you can see how there are different checks here in terms of, is there evidence of link farming? Do they have a social media presence? Have they been hit by recent algorithm updates? And then there's a bit of conditional format in here to start to grade the site as well. So ideally you want sites with sort of zeros or ones grading. So for example, here we can see, do they link out to casino or Forex sites and things like that. But yeah, links in the description on that one so you can make a copy. And I'd say as well, when it comes to outsourcing something like Blogger Outreach, with a bit of a shameless plug, but you want that option to pre-approve at least initially, so you can see the links that you get in, see the process, that who you're working with, that aligns with how you would vet sites. So for example, at Complete White Label, we have a non-approval and a pre-approval. So clients can pre-approve the bloggers, pre-approve the content that gets sent to them, and the same with niche edits and things like that. So that's it really. Those are my main link building strategies that I would focus on. If there's anything else you do or you want to see any other videos in this sort of area, just drop us a comment and yeah, hopefully see you in the next video.